So welcome back. As you well know, my name is Andrew Georgitsis, and hopefully you guys learned quite a bit in the previous two videos where we took a look at, introducing Jeff Seckendorf, the co-founder and vice president of Unified Team Diving, or UTD International, and then of course meeting myself, and hopefully you really got to know a little bit more about our background, what we're about, where we're from, and so forth. Moving on, today I want to talk a little bit about the background itself of UTD, Unified Team Diving, not me personally or Jeff personally, but actually the organization and the company. Now, of course, a lot of this information you can find by simply going to our website. So if you go to our website, there's a tab up here called About Us. And it's great if you just go click on that tab, you will see in the menu system a whole lot of stuff about our roots, our background, our covenants, everything we're going to talk about in this section now. But we're going to talk about it a little bit differently. In other words, I'm not going to quite talk about what's in the website. We're going to have a little bit of one-on-one time. This is what we call the series, UTD Under the Hood. So thinking about that, one of the things is that in about 2005, as you guys met me, I had left my previous organization where I was the training director for, and I decided to go my own direction. And this really gave me the ability to free up my what I would say, my constraints, because within that organization, as training director, I was under the guidance, of their directives and of course their president and vice president and so forth. So by branching out and being able to do my own organization, what this did is free me up to be able to start saying, okay, what do I want to do as Unified Team Diving? Now, as you know, the tenet of DIR, so DIR is, doing it right. One of the tenets of DIR is unified team. And so I took that tenet in the name to form the name of my organization, or this organization. And so at the time, as Jeff had mentioned, Jeff was taking some classes, and together we combined our assets, so to speak, to start working on this unified team ideology that we had. And really, first and foremost, I think if you really want to think, first and foremost, both Jeff and I, as the co-founders of UTD, but all our lives, have been educators. And that, if you want to know the background of UTD, that's the number one, sort of most important mission, purpose, any name you want to give it that we have, is that we are educators first and foremost. And so we think about our organization in those layers of education. What do we want out of education? What do we want to instill into our students as Unified Team Diving? And then we we search for like-minded instructors. I don't care if they're perfectly flat. Who cares? What I care about is first and foremost, right here, that they're educators. So we developed our standards and procedures, which is a huge document that takes an enormous amount of time to develop, thinking in that line, thinking from what we always call the end goal in mind. Starting in the end goal. What's the end goal? Just like our diving. When we develop protocols, we always think of what's the worst situation you can be in? What's the furthest back in the cave? 2 scooters, multiple stages, and now you have to air share and get home. What protocol do you need to have for that? We don't think about it, the other way around, which is, I'm a beginner and then I keep just adding stuff to my Christmas tree, right? It's the top-down way of thinking. So the idea being, as we thought about that in education as well. So when we wrote the standards and procedures, we didn't only think about how do we have the highest in the industry. We do. We have the highest in the industry. Without being unobtainium. This is, again, we can all do silly things and, say, okay, you got to be able to swim, 1,500 yards in 5 minutes. And, okay, so we're going to get 3 people to do that. But that's not really what makes you a great diver, is being able to swim 400 yards in 15 minutes. It doesn't make you a great diver at all. Okay, So we have to have standards that are realistic, but also that demand the highest. And in a way, we started thinking about how do we develop an educational system to support that. And that's our true background, is how do we develop an educational system that maintains the highest standards in the industry, but also is not unobtainium, but also is, as you know, as you met me last week, disseminates the information exactly the way I would dive. And again, because we want to fit into the industry, how do we amalgamate all of this? How do we make this mesh? Because again, when you are in the court of law, they're going to call the opposing agency's expert witness. And that expert may say things completely contrary to you and your belief, or even to the industry. They may say, you know, in our agency or our, you know, whatever, we always say, never hold your breath. And in your agency, your standards say, you know, no need to blow out bubbles if you're not ascending. And that too may contradict. And so you have to write your standards in a manner that not only are insurable, that's the most important thing, right? That's the background of everything, is that we meet the insurance guidelines, we meet the industry guidelines to be insured and underwritten by Lloyd's of London, of course, which we are and we do, and that we are able to provide insurance for our instructors. We're able to have our instructors call up the insurance company and say, I'm a UTD instructor, blah, 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 and I seek insurance. Not, I am an instructor for another agency, and please can you put UTDs on it? No. We have the ability to insure instructors who just teach for UTD. Right? And so, in fact, we even often waive our membership fees if you only teach for UTD. But that's another thing. The point is in our background was about developing a structure that is insurable, of course, that is the highest standards in the industry, but also not so far out that we couldn't be within the industry's norm. And this is really, really important. And then another very, very important aspect is that we stick within many of our covenants, that we are consistent. All right? Because there's nothing worse than having, you know, an agency that even contradicts itself in its different levels. You know, and this is really, really, really a difficult balance, because, for example, some agencies will promote the idea that when you're deploying an SMB, your buddy needs to hold you down, or you need to wrap your legs around a big rock, or find the railing on a wreck and hold it. And this is the norm in the industry that's been taught by other agencies. And what you're saying is, no. I have to be consistent. When we shoot an SMB, when we deploy a surface marker buoy, we have to do it in such a manner that we are neutrally buoyant, and that we are, in good trim and team awareness, and we're in a position that we can deploy this SMB safely. And what they would say is, but if you're not holding a rock and you're not holding, somebody's not holding you down, or you're not grabbing the wreck with your legs, then if you get entangled, it'll drag you to the surface. And we have to say, well, it is our, design that the SMB be this long, this wide, and that, this amount of gas will not drag you to the surface, and you're in good trim, good buoyancy, good skill level. Nothing's going to get entangled. But even if it did, we have a procedure that can fight that SMB back down. So you actually won't get dragged to the surface. There's no need to hold the rail. There's no need for somebody to hold you down. And then they'll get into argument with you. Then they'll be like, no, but if I take a breath and then I deploy the breath into the SMB and then I release the SMB, then I'm going to be negatively buoyant while that, and you're like, again, you are going down a road of all these assumptions of this buoyancy, when in reality, there is no buoyancy change, and I can teach you how to do this properly. So I have to be consistent in the way I dive. I won't have anybody hold me down. I won't grab the rails with my legs. I won't pick up a big rock. You know, I don't lose buoyancy when I deploy an SMB because, again, I have the skill to do it. And again, that's what I have to teach. But I also have to be able to defend it. And that's the critical part. That procedure, or that in the standards and procedures, has to be defendable in court. Because, again, if I end up in court and the opposing agency is on the expert witness, and the opposing agency says, but we make our students, and this industry standard is that our people hold each other down, or we hold a rock, or we do some silliness like that. You know, these guys are out in, you know, la la land thinking that they can be neutrally buoyant and shoot an SMB. I have to be able to defend that position. Now, you think about this. It took me 3 years. Well, Jeff and I, don't mean speaking just like that, but Jeff and I, 3 years to develop these standards and have them reviewed by attorneys that prosecute diving accidents. And pick through them and say, oh, I can beat you up on this, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. And then be able to submit them to the insurance company once we've got all those sorted out, so that the insurance company says, yes, you're now insurable, we can underwrite you and all that good stuff. And this is a huge process in our background. And, you know, like I've tried to explain to you, it's a balancing act. Right? It's a total balancing act of your ethos, your message, your beliefs as an instructor, to only teach the way you want to teach. Then to be supported by standards that support the way you do this. And ultimately, an agency that supports you as an instructor and defends you. You know, and this is one of the biggest challenges that UTD's had throughout the last, now, believe it or not, we're almost at 10 years on the marketplace. We did our first instructor class in December of 2008, so it's coming up, you know, our tenure. And what I want you to understand is, from a background perspective, is that right now, as of today, I've been teaching almost 30 years, and Jeff very close to. And in all of my time teaching for all the different agencies, and now my own agency, my accident rate and my death rate is 0. I'm the only agency, legitimate agency that's formed, that's on the planet that has 0 accidents, 0 deaths, 0 losses. Nothing, 0. My score is perfect. And you can check it out. We have no UTD divers that have ever died of anything. And it's very difficult because you want to also make sure that you defend that you have that reputation. You know, there are many deaths that happen in these other agencies, and the agencies don't back up their instructors because the instructor was off on a limb teaching the way they want to teach, or believing in what they want to believe, or doing something that they believe in, and not realizing that, hey, if you're breaking the standards, the agency will not support you. The agency will pull the rug out from underneath you. You have to teach within that agency's normal culture. Even so, in the standards it says, you know, okay, you should do this. If you do something that you feel is better and something happens, the agency will not support you. You will go under the bus as instructor. And so we as an agency have to, as UTD, also have to do that. But so therefore, the standards we wrote are for like-minded people, instructors and so forth, that are like-minded like we are. You understand? In that, the way we think, that we believe this. And this is the background of UTD. As always, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@unifiedteamdiving. And as always, safe diving.